it up. There we go. And let's share screens with everybody on YouTube. There we go. And so good morning. This is Simon with toughtrader.com doing the live market preview for the 7th of, where are we? April, May. Wow, the time just flies by this year. So just real quick, if you'll take a minute to read the disclosure, past performance is not indicative of future results, right? This is for educational purposes. I'm not soliciting anyone to buy or sell anything whatsoever, much less any financial products. And my number one deal there is, if you can't make money paper trading, you can't make money real trading. If you're losing money, slow your roll down. And then there's one other thing I need to read there from, and I'll get it for you. Hold on one second here. And that is, just for the fun of reading it, let's go to hold on one second. I have to read this as well. CFTC Rule 4.41. Hypothetical or simulated performance results have certain limitations, and unlike actual performance records, simulated results do not represent actual trading. Also, since the trades have not necessarily been executed, the results may have under or overcompensated for the impact, if any, of certain market factors such as lack of liquidity. Simulated trading programs in general are also subject to the fact that they are designed with the benefit of hindsight. No representation is being made that any account will or is likely to achieve profits or losses similar to those shown. See further details. And that notice will be tacked onto this notice here pretty soon. But at any rate, the whole reason it's simulated is using the simulated results. Disclaimer there is because there's no way you can necessarily know whether you got the exact same fill as me. We're giving general location, right? That may or may not work. So what I was pointing out this morning, is I feel really relaxed. I'm not in a rush to do anything. So look at the profile, right? If I were coming in and going, gee, I want to be short, or I think it's going to fall apart, right? Well, there's nothing wrong with thinking of that in a general sense. But see how we have this big body here on the TPO? So this represents volume and time, right? A lot of volume and a lot of time were all put in up on top of the 6750. This is the volume. This is the time that was spent. And so I know I just have to get underneath the 6750, 6740 area in order to be short. So what would that look like so I'd have an idea? Well, if we looked back on, so the reason that is important is because if I want to come in and go, God, I just know it can't keep going up. Well, that's fine, right? But the first thing you kind of know is you got to get underneath 6750 to make the thing work to the downside. Number one. Number two, if we look back at past examples, so that's on NQ, and I'm going to give both NQ and ES in a second. Let's say you came over here and you said, well, I know this gap up really did it. This is really short now, right? I would have gone like this. Let me erase all lines. I would have said, look, I know I got to get underneath this. And notice we didn't get underneath that, right? For days. See how it finally took all this time to get underneath? So you could have been bearish as all get out up here, right? But the market didn't shake loose till 5 days later, and it was balanced all the way through there. By the same token, you could have said, hey, I know the market's going to run. It's out of control. That, you know, there's nothing above to keep me from running. And that was inaccurate as well. If you look at this day where we're looking at this profile over here, right? And I'm trying to just bring some balance to the point of view, right? The logical target here, when we look above this area, right, there was two things. There was an anomaly over here that had to be completed, and then there was a volume point of control right there. Those were the two things that were above it. You would have said, well, that's where it's going to run into resistance. And if I'm going to look for clues, I'm going to look for clues up there to find a short, or I'm going to look to be below 66.21 to find a short. And in between, I expect it to balance, right? And then where would I expect it to come back to? Well, this would be my logical location Why? Because this is volume and time combined together. And I know that areas just historically tend to get defended, right? So if you look back at what the market did, we went sideways, 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 right? We finally end up with a down day, and it comes to, if you'll notice, we fall just shy of getting to support down on the downside. The reason that's important is this way we can now get some pretty good perspective. Let me plug this in. We can get some pretty good perspective on what the market may or may not do going forward, right? So for today, with all that in mind, right, what do we have above and what do we have below? So first of all, I know I need to get below 67.50, right? There's three really important areas on the NQ chart. Then we're going to cover the ES chart. Please write these down. Once I trade below 66.43, I'm looking for a reversal, whether it's today or a couple days down the road. 66.43 on NQ becomes important. I know I've got to get below and hold below 67.40. I'm trading at 68.11 right now. So guess what? I'm probably going to find responsive buyers before 67.40, specifically probably right there in the middle of that 66.61. And then again at the volume point of control at 67.51. There's support down here. You're going to have to break that support before you really shake it loose. There's a really poorly auctioned area in here, and we'll see how they respond. But I know at 66.43, I'm starting to look for new responsive buyers. This is a double distribution. Usually that double distribution is a really strong location to find a long area out of. Now notice, it looks like we just broke out of balance above here, right? So again, trapping back below 67.41 would take us towards the bottom of balance. And now this area makes a lot of sense to find responsive buyers. What's above to hold us in? If we look off to the left, all right, we'll see there's a naked volume point of control and a naked TPO point of control. That's 67.77. We're already above that, right? So what's behind that? Well, really the logical area now becomes this 68.4150 to 68.38. If you look at where Globex high landed, which I'm going to look at right now, we came in at 68.33, just shy of that neighborhood right there. And my guess is we're going to go ahead and make that push up into 68.41 this morning. Everyone thinks the NASDAQ's broken out, so that would make sense. And then I know that when I look at this chart a little bit bigger, that this was my most recent swing high, right? So before I'm thinking breakout, before I'm thinking, wow, the market's really going to roll, I know I need the market above 68.72 in order to break out. Otherwise, all this is, so you'll notice when everyone got all hyped up last time, right? Broke out, traded above a little bit, and down she rolled. So I don't see a reason to be overly hyped about this particular scenario here or why we should go any more nuts than we had before. People are too day by day in terms of assuming, oh, the market's turned or, oh, the market hasn't turned. We have broken off a nice base here to the left. And if we get above 68.72, there's plenty of areas above to re-auction. The range has been about 100 to 120 points. So if we look at where we closed, which is right here at 67.77, that would put us at 68.77, which would be right around this swing high. And I would look for exhaustion in that area if we were to get up there. That's my 2 cents on NQ. I'm pretty relaxed on it. I know that people are going to try really hard to press, so we'll talk about the algo in just a second. Let's go look at ES really quick. Let's minimize this and go to ESTPO. Okay, so first, when we take a look at that picture, right, let's pull this in. What do we see? Okay, notice number one, what's ES been doing? It's not trending. It's not a bear market. It's not a bull market. It's a chop market. It's just over a wide range, right? And generally what happens when you get that wide range, right, if you're relaxed about it, you're looking, you're going, well, it's probably doing this. Why do I know that? Because this is exactly what it's doing. Dun, 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 dun. The only thing that's freaking people out is it's coming over a huge wide range, right? So normally I would look for a response at 10, but if you'll look on most of these days, I'm not going to do it right now. If you'll go look when we're past minus 20 to minus 30, see if I can draw that with a mouse. There we go. That's not bad. Minus 20 to 30, you're getting pops back up. I don't want to be short minus 20 to 30 because we're generally in balance, right? By the same token, when we've been up 20 to 30. If you go look on these days, most days, I realize Friday was an exception, but it was non-farm payroll, we're getting exhausted and we're popping back to the downside. Usually you got about 10 points from each of those regions. Okay, so as you go through the process, let's take a little bit closer look at this. Okay, what's nearby as support and resistance? So number one, the first thing I know is that in order to be short, I need to get underneath the bulk of this. So that really brings me, I know the volume point of control is 2647, so that's what I'm going to use as my measure, but really it's 54 to 47. We're currently trading at 2671. 20 from 2671 brings me to 2650. So guess what? I expect an attempt at responsive buying right there the first time in. Pretty easy. I expect if we break underneath here, right, that'll then put us relative to where we closed, which was roughly 2670. I don't expect to re-auction this whole area. The market would have to fall apart. I don't expect it, right? So even if we fall out of balance, which is down here, you'll notice that there's a what they call an anomaly right there on the edge. I would expect that to get a response back up towards that volume point of control. It's right on the bottom area of value, right, at 2639 to 2636. And I would expect it to pop back towards 2653 out of that area. The chart is repaired. Really important to remember at 2623. I'm looking for big reversals out of that 2623 area. Even if it shoots past, right? Once I get to 2623, I'm not shorting anymore. Worst case scenario, we get down to this double distribution, and I'm looking for a reversal. So I'm either looking for a reversal from 2623 or 2605. Either way, I don't expect to get down there today because usually what happens after we have non-farm payrolls is we usually balance in the upper level of whatever the non-farm payroll was. But we'll burn the first half hour and we'll see where they're going. So we have a poor high. This high is likely to get broken. See how it's not very to the point? You get little tips that are very, see how this was pretty poor high? Here, I'll show you a good high versus a poor high. Good high, right? Poor high tends to get broken. See how they came over here, just broke it, then rolled it back down. Good high, they gapped above it, acted as support, right? So we have a poor high. I would expect that poor high to get broken, and I'm looking for excess at the top, which means you end up with a line where it kind of zips up and then zips back down. You kind of know you have a good high at that point, right? And then when I look at resistance, well, what's resistance over here? Well, let me go look. I know this is my high, which I expect to get broken, right? And when I look back, I have a double distribution sitting right here. Okay, I'll make it a little bit wider at 2678. The high is 2675. I would normally, if I were a betting man, which I am, and you asked me to put money on where we're going to reverse, I would normally say the second part of a double distribution, right, with a wide stop, meaning let's say I gave it 10 points from there, right? I would generally say you'll look back and see that will be the point of resistance where we rolled back down from. I'd be looking for responsive sellers in that area. So this is the caveat. Understand they're not going to make it easy there, and it's probably going to get hung up as people keep trying to step in and push that higher until they finally get exhausted. So today, my guess would be instead of looking at it like it's going to go boom, boom, like that, which is what happens when we're in a weak market, we probably do this and then fall out of it like that later in the day. So I think you have time. You don't have to be Johnny on the spot right there. You can give it time to work out, right? And then if we look past that, if we're able to make it past there, you'll notice that's a swing high. So as we look to the left, what's there? Well, what you'll notice is all the points of control above, which are the volume points of control and the TPO point of control, they've all been covered up. So if we consolidate above there, 2714 is the logical upside target. And that's where I would expect exhaustion. We're 2670, that puts us about 30 points up. That would be a logical upside target for either today or tomorrow, assuming we can get above and hold above 2684. So we'll just take it step by step and let the market come to us. Now, let's look at the algo pre-market as we're about to open up, okay, and see what the algo tells us. So I've broken the algo into a few more stages this weekend. So number one, I've laid out the algo, as you can see here. So I've separated the VWAP and the areas of extension to a small area. This was actually thanks to JD. I don't know if he suggested it or just occurred to me, but He and I talk about flying a lot. We talk about pilot workflow, so you can process the information in an efficient manner, right? And so 2 things about this. Number 1, I know my best shorts come. So I want to say this again really loudly and really clearly. My best shorts come between the 2nd and 3rd standard deviations. So everything above this blue line, when I get short signals, I know I have a great chance to work that trade back to the downside. You'll notice overnight, once you got location, constant move back to VWAP. The algo works great overnight, by the way, guys. For those who can handle staying up through Europe, I can't. Again, underneath, constant move back to VWAP from that 1st and 2nd standard deviation. So guess what I'm looking for when I'm on my workflow? If I want to trade less and being a trader that has more effective trades, I want to stay out of everything in between near VWAP, and I want to start targeting execution between the 2nd and 3rd standard deviation. So does that mean I'll be trading in that area? No, it does not. But that's what I'll be targeting to get the algo to set me up in those areas. If you'll notice, right, one of the keys from Friday, if you'll come back and look at this, is once we consolidated, look where we started on Friday. We started off the 24-hour between the 1st and 2nd standard deviation, moved to VWAP, rejected off of VWAP, got above, consolidated, and moved into the 1st and 2nd. Now, on true trend day up, you're just going to keep getting run over because it's just going to hang out between the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd standard deviation. These are rare days. They're about 13% of the time. And of those, that split between trend day up and trend day down. So I keep that in my just up in the upper corner. So I have a pretty good concept of where we are. I spread that out, and I know what I'm looking for through the course of the day. And you'll notice they're all pretty tucked in, right? So I'm going to look for a break one way or the other. Secondly, I've brought this up to a higher time frame, the 5-minute, right? And what I want to point out off the 5-minute, okay, so I want to bring this to a small picture so everyone can see this. See how we consolidated down here. See off here to the left, we consolidate down here. We've had a break to the upside, and we were above the 200 period. But see how we snuck overnight and Sunday, and we've been underneath that 200 period average. So this is a gauge for me to tell me whether I have overhead resistance or not. I know I want to be above 2675 this morning, right? That's where we've banged off of consistently. So if I'm an aggressive scalper, I'm going to look for rejection off that 2675 this morning. If I'm not, I'm going to wait for a stretch because it's not very big stretch from where we are right now. Number 2, notice how we ripped all the way through here. So the first thing I want to know is, where's my control bar? I'm going to add this. I'm going to go just past the open, just so you know, guys, in terms of setting up the day. So I want my volume profile. This was my low, roughly, right? And this was my high prior to Sunday night. That is my point of control right there. 2646 is my point of control. But you can see the volume was pretty well equally distributed, and we start getting into these low volume pockets underneath, and the market will tend to want to fill them in, but we're going to have to get behind and below this area right there, which again brings up 2650 to 2646. I expect responsive buyers in that area the first time in, right? Secondly, when I'm looking through there, right, where am I looking to see if I can find responsive buyers? I'm looking for where they leave wicks on the backside of these 5-minute bars, right? Particularly intraday. Don't pay any attention to the little blue dots. They're going to come up all night long, right? But I'm looking for the backside of these tests, just like I got some support right when I came to the backside of this structure. So overnight, this was my last structure right here that I had. I've got to get underneath this structure to push lower. If I get above this structure, there's not a lot of resistance up here, except for this moving average that's getting tired, and I'm looking for some kind of sign off of 2675 that might show we're going to push back in. Above 2675, we're probably resuming back to the upside, right? And then lastly, so this is my indicator for trend. I'm paying no attention to it. I want to watch for my setups near this moving average right here. This moving average is specifically programmed in combination with the big deltas to give me great trade location, right? And that is what I am looking for through the course of the day. And I'm going to allow the market to set itself up, as we've just opened, by the way. I'm going to allow the market to set itself up. And just like Friday, I want to show you when we're in momentum, because this is pretty important. Let me clear this really quick. Okay, so this is from, where were we before we launched here? There we launched. Okay, so a couple things you're going to notice. So notice how everything is pointed up there, right? This is where I took my early stops, right in here. I tried to short in this area. That made sense. Notice that once we got above here at 9 o'clock, okay, so I ran into a conflict at that point. I wanted to short, but notice when everything is above every single, so the moving averages are good in some ways and they're bad in some ways. They're not the determiner of whether I go in or out, but when we can't get the market to push below them, on the strongest trend days, this is what that looks like. You want to get underneath, or you want to see some kind of attempt at weakness below structure. Say, oh, we put a structure in here, we put structure in here, and we just couldn't break below. You want to see an impulse move below, and if you'll watch what that looked like, see how when we finally move here, and we finally get an impulse move, and we backside tested over here, see how that created resistance? Even though it didn't roll down, it gave you an area to lean against, right? For a push lower. Makes sense, correct? And then see how it consolidated, broke out. Now watch. See how we created a new structure? Backside tested that structure, found responsive buyers. So this morning, when I'm looking at the algo in real time, right, which I'm going to come over here and do it, right? First thing I notice is, okay, they're coming in with responsive sellers out of the gate. Where do I expect those responsive sellers to react or not react? Well, I'd want to see, number one, I want to get above this moving average if I think I'm going to push back up, right? So there's nothing for me to do here anyways. I burned the first 30 minutes. It's too inaccurate, right? But now let's go to a smaller time frame here. Let's take this off. That's funny. I don't know why I have that on there. Okay, so this is the smaller time range and the smaller picture of what I'm actually executing off of, right? That's big picture. The one I just saw, this is tiny picture, right? See how all I'm doing on the tiny picture, it looks like on the 5 minute. See how it looks on the 5 minute like we're falling apart, but we're not, right? Because the tiny picture is telling me a different story. This is a 2 range bar, right? So number one, I know I'm pushing down between my first and second standard deviation away from VWAP, right? So I know I'm likely to find responsive buyers there. Secondly, I know I've got, again, this purple line means nothing to me. It's a general gauge. It's like a horizon gauge on an airplane, okay? This and this are the two things that matter to me. This one up here and this one down here. So I know that we did not have a strong delta closing above. The algo tells me that. It cuts out a lot of the work. I want a greater than 500 delta. But I would expect, see how on a 5 minute you look like, oh, it's going to break down. It's all, there's nothing. We didn't make it past this swing over here to the left. See that? All we did is we just pressed down into pre-market support here is all we've done. And we've responded right out of it. Nothing terrible has happened here. I have perspective. I understand what's going on. I know I need to get underneath this right here for the market to be, quote, bearish or pull back or anything else. And I also know the most likely result is that I'm going to test right up into that 73 to 76 area. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for two things when I get up there. Just like this, right? I want to get below this moving average. See how if I waited in the pre-market below that moving average, roll down. If I get up here, I want to get below that moving average and roll down. And then conversely, as I get above with a decent delta, so see how I just had a 629, right? I would now have a good place to take risk. I can take the close of that bar, right? I now have an entry, exit, stop. I can enter here. I can either choose my stop as 26.67 minus a point. I would really use my stop as right here below this swing here to the left, as it's only another point in there. And now I know as soon as I close above 69.50, I should push. And where's my logical target to the upside? It's this bar right here. All this tells me why. That was a high volume bar right at the apex. It's a shooting star. They tend to get retested. So I would look for a test up here. But either way, I'm not short until I get below this structure here to the left. I know I need that, right? Or unless I push all the way up, because I don't want to get into the process of getting run over for multiple reasons, multiple good reasons. Hold on, I got to shut something down here real quick. I'm going to close this file, close workspace, close chartbook. No. There we go. A lot less data being consumed there. And I'm going to close this. I'll leave that going. What the heck? So, and that's how, by the way, when you're in real time, how the algo helps us make a very quick assessment. Outside of even looking at the charts and the support areas, I go, okay, I know I need at least a 500 delta. Boom. the algo tells us we have that. I need to close above this moving average, the one that turns red and green. Closed above, bam, I have an entry, an exit, a stop, and a lift, even right out of the gate. And then it also gives me pretty quick way of looking off to the left and going, I know if I don't break this, there's really nothing short, and my logical target is this up here. Why? It's the swing high. You can't push lower, you're probably going to push higher, right? And then lastly, see how we came back, if I come back to the 5 minute over here, see how the 5 minute didn't give me, it's such a big time frame, it didn't give me any information. As a matter of fact, it might have looked, right, if you just look off of this, it might have looked like, oh, we're about to break down. It could have emotionally sucked you in, right? We want to let the market push up. We want to see a seller come in, right? And then we want to look for the roll down. We don't have to be at the very top. We don't have to be at the very bottom. We can wait until we see responsive sellers come in first or responsive buyers come in first and trade it in a relaxed fashion. And you can do that on a higher time frame and on a smaller time frame, right? Imagine all the people this morning that thought the market's run too far. I'm going to short. There's my big seller out of the gate. And they don't take their time just to do the basic homework of, oh, I'm now between my first and second standard deviation, and I keep getting responsive buyers out of there. Just like right here, right? I know I'm between the first and second standard deviation. So even if I short up here, I know I got to get past VWAP, right? And then these numbers, I'm not going to go into explaining them. Everyone already knows what they are. I'm looking for sell imbalances, buy imbalances. I'm trying to see where the sellers are or are not stepping into the market, right? So, and then you'll see the same picture on NQ, which, by the way, I don't keep up on the screen. But there's my NQ picture, right? And what you'll see here is that's my 200 period underneath me. I know I'm not short unless I get underneath that. I need to break that. See, we've been trending above it all night long. See that? That's strong trend. We have not broken that. I want to see a break below there. Why? Normally, that's not a requirement, especially in a balanced market. But when we're trending straight up, yeah, I want to see us get below 26.64 at this point, right? Unless I just have fantastico short location, right? Because what's happening is I keep getting absorbed and every responsive buy comes in and just steamrolls me up. So this gives me a great way of not getting emotionally involved with, oh, it's short. I'll know it's short. I'll get underneath it. And if you don't believe me, here, look through the history of it. Here, we'll just squeeze it up a little bit. If you use that as your gauge on NQ, right, that saves you from getting crushed. Not only that, look when we before, if you look when we were underneath it, every setup using the trigger, right? So remember, there's a trigger and then there's background information. This is my background information. This is my trigger. But every trigger below ended up setting me up with huge rotations to the downside, right? If you look to the left before when we got set up to the long side over here, see how we pushed up? Now every trigger to the upside is giving me beautiful rotations up. And then once we get underneath that 200 period, so see how we squeezed underneath, right? Now I have beautiful rotations to the downside, and that becomes a great way to elementally not get run over. I have a double trigger method there. I have a way that keeps me from getting run over, and then I have a way of looking back and going, okay, I'm really looking for longs at this point until I can see either this catch up. Does that mean I'll miss the high from a short perspective? Yeah, I'll miss the high from a short perspective. There's no question about it, right? And then lastly, I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at my chart, right? My chart's going to tell me so I was able to figure all that out off the open without any stress whatsoever, right? The algo helps me significantly. It keeps me emotionally in check. Big hole in profile. Logical target is really up to the 68.40 to 68.50 on NQ realistically. And then you can see we're pushing up into resistance on ES. This is a double distribution. Again, this is an area I would normally expect rejection out of this location. This was Globex high, okay? And then that area right above, that 85 to 88, there's not a location on the profile. However, if you look on a big time frame chart, you'll see that's been consistently support resistance area that's come back and forth both times. So that's my 2 cents. My expectation is that you're going to keep finding responsive buyers until we have a breakdown. So the first clue of my breakdown, right, if we're going to roll back to the downside or even get a bout of profit taking, is I'm going to come over here. Where is this? What have we done? Oh, I see. All right, so this is my 5 minute chart. This is my gap up, right? I'm going to come up here and go, where is my 50-60 retrace, right? Secondly, I'm going to go look at my tick. Okay, all my ticks are positive. I want to see, can I start getting some negative ticks? That tells me that at least it's some participation to the downside. And if I'm a swing trader, I'm all right taking a trade at 64 to 78, but that probably means my stop isn't 2 points, right? I'm going to let the animal spirits be animal spirits and break out. And I'm going to refer back to, so I'm going to keep the chart brushed up like this on half the page. And so see how, I want to show you all this. So see how even out of the open, if I felt like being aggressive, nope, that's not what I want. Even if I felt like being aggressive, see how that bar closed above my, basically what I call that my line of demarcation, where I'm getting triggered in with a heavy delta and pushed to the upside. And where did it come back? To test this point of control, which is a totally logical place to find resistance. And Globex high. That was a great entry. I just don't want to trade at 8:31 in the morning, right? And then everyone who got emotionally hammered into, oh, this is a short, let the thing go through a cycle. It does it all the time. It just has this natural rotation cycle, and it'll keep you from getting run over. That's my 2 cents for today. I'm really pretty relaxed coming into today. I'm going to let them work out the first half hour of the day, and then I'm going to start looking for trade setups, right? So everyone thinks I have half the world going, don't buy the hype. We've apparently, I saw a bunch of traders, the 5 and the 20 period moving averages crossed each other or some nonsense like that. But that's for a lot of swing traders. That's their long signal on NQ. So they got long Friday, and they're going to want to defend that below. And really, when you look at the move on NQ, you'd think that there'd be responsive buyers above, but this thing has had a history of just falling apart the last 2 months. And the real big question shouldn't be, are we in a bull market or a bear market? The real question for you should be, are we out of these 100-point ranges? Because if you think about it, if you're an NQ trader, let's say you think we've broken out to the upside, but we're still in a 100-point range, and you buy when we're down 30 points, it snags you, it stops you all the way down minus 70, only to watch it go up 300 points after that. Doesn't do you any good, right? So I suggest you just take it one nice step at a time and let the market come back in. If you're bullish, let the market come into support. If you're bearish, let it get underneath that. Let it get underneath that 200 period so that you get these nice extensions back to the downside, right? So, and then lastly, make sure you get below your trigger line. Even if you're scalping, you want to be underneath this trigger line to get momentum to the downside. You don't want to get run over. So I need a moment to get my trading domes up and running, which I'm going to do right now. See if I have this. Okay, where is this hiding? See, I have this hiding somewhere. I'm just going to close it. Start it over because it's obviously not there. And then let me log into my other dome. But see over here right now, see how we're just pegged against the 10 period, and you can think, so see how we're just pegged against this moving average up here, right? Okay, so I can think it's as short as I want to think. It's in the white zone. It's everything that I want, right? That's open drive higher again. I want to get underneath 26.75 on a closing basis on that 2 range bar, right? With a delta of greater than negative 500, right? So then I have an entry exit stop. I want to see the seller come in first. So I don't have to get emotional about it. Can't go up any higher, can't go down any lower. If you wanted the long, you had it nailed. I drew it right there, right? I'm just not trading the first 5 minutes of the day. You can't get any better than that, right? And there's no reason to get out of that trade right now if you're long until you see it close below this moving average. Okay, and I need to drag this over here. Minimize this. And then I need to start PlayStation. Oh, that's not what I wanted at all. Wow, that's not very convenient. Let's take that off so that the whole world sees it. Give it just a second and I'll be able to flash it. It's just sitting there with that stupid blue circle, so I don't know what the issue is. We'll find out. Really? Oh, how I hate TradeStation some days. So gap, overdrive higher, right? No sign of selling. Everybody wants in. Let them have in. Who cares? They'll have to set us up sooner or later. That's just how it works. I don't believe this. Where the heck is this hiding? Hold on one second here, guys. Really, that's not cool. There we go. Okay, so even though we're into the white zone, it's a double distribution, right? Remember, I'm not shorting this. Here, I can pull this up now. Right, I'm between my second and third standard deviation over here to my left, right? What am I looking for? Looking to get below this moving average with a heavy negative delta, right? So there's no reason for you to go in there and do the work without let the market do the work for you, right? Yeah, that's a good area. Yeah, that's good location. But there's no need to get emotional. They're obviously, they want to buy it out of the gate. Let them, right? We had location if you wanted it. There's nothing here for us to do, right? Except let them exhaust themselves. And you can see right to the white zone on NQ, and they're having a little bit of issue there. So we'll see if they turn that into anything. And then I want this. And if you want a little bit bigger picture, that's a little bit bigger picture. That's a 5-point bar. You see 2642 is way down here where our support is. They're pushing hard. I'd like to get underneath this bar, this 5-point range bar right here. I'd like to get underneath it. That would tell me we've probably trapped some people right here, right? It would get me underneath my trigger for my moving average, which, by the way, let me fix that really quick. Okay, I'd like to get underneath with a negative delta, and I'd like to get underneath this bar, and I probably have some momentum to the downside at that point. That's probably going to be an exhaustion bar there. But again, I don't feel a need to pick off the high and get myself run over today. Just kind of relax through it, right? So I have that off to the right. And then I have NQ hiding here somewhere. Where do I have NQ hiding? There we are. NQ. And again, I want to change this on NQ a little bit too. Let's do 2 points. I want 5 times 4, 20 ticks. Oh, wrong one. Wrong chart. So don't need this one at all. No. Okay. Where's my NQ chart? There it is. Nope. Okay, let's do this. There we go. My NQ will be up in just a second. So you see the rejection right out of 68.40 on NQ. Again, why do I not do anything? Because I want to wait to actually get confirmation that I actually see some kind of seller in there before jumping in. Same thing with ES. I've got to get below. I've got to get below this moving average for me to jump in, even if I think it's the most mega short. Unless you just want to work the close off that 200, and that's fine. Your entry then is simply the close above this point, this 26.78. I like to get below the 10 period. I like it when it looks just like this back here to the left. This is harder because the stop is bigger, but they're both valid entries. Anyone have any questions, guys? All the tick is positive. It looks reasonably bullish to the upside. I wouldn't be scared if I was long either, other than to know that we're way extended, right? But I wouldn't be scared. That's for sure. I'd say your support is all the way back right now at 2673 area, which is about a 5-point rotation down. And on NQ, I would say your first place I would look for responsive buyers from a scalping perspective. 68.27 to 68.25. That's just from a scalping perspective. Pull this down a little bit. As you can see so far, they have no desire to sell ES, right? And we've got no trigger off the algo to short ES. We've got location, don't have trigger. And NQ getting a little bit tired here is no big deal. Again, if you need the algo on your desktop, let me know. ES continues to push. And also notice the other thing that's important for day trading, right? Notice that we don't have the rotations, right? So that's the other key component in getting your trades off quickly as a day trader. I know that a lot of people tend to forget, like, what's the key component? If you're a swing trader, you're going to sit there and wait, right? But you're a day trader, right? I want to get my scales off, right? If this thing can't move down, like on NQ, I want to see a 10-point down move. Like, I want to short and go, bam, there's my There's my short. I don't have anything indicating to me that I should want to be short at this particular juncture for a fast trade, right? Now, that doesn't mean I can't park it and go, we roll down from here, right? That's exhaustion. If that's your game plan, super. It's in the white zone. It's the back of the white zone. Put your stop 2 points behind and let her rip. You either take it or you don't, right? But that's how that process works for me. I know what I'm looking for. I want to see my first. That was a big positive delta, by the way, on 2 range. See that right there? 21, 22. They are pushing hard. That tells me they're pushing hard through here, right, on these deltas, right? And I've had the potential of trapping these guys. Now I just need to come in and actually see them, be willing to sell this thing so that it pushes lower, right? Anyone have any questions, guys? Any feedback in the room? Am I been pretty clear on what I'm looking for? Contractors. That's almost like saying you have the devil in your house there, Peter. That's a rough thing. I do not. I'm not big on contractors. It's nothing personal, but man, those guys. NQ's up 61. ES is still pushing. Let them push. I have nothing. This is my only signal, and that was to get long right there. That was it. And we've rolled up pretty nicely since then. And it was too early in the day for me to take it. So I can wait all day long. I just want my money. Oops. Hold on a second here. No response. No response. No relief yet, and no indication to short. Although this would not be a bad area considering where we are. We're all the way up at that second standard deviation. If I get a setup, I'll certainly look for it. A sell imbalance would be a clue. Anything that they might be able to exhaust it, right? But I don't want to fight it just because I think it's, quote, gone too far, right? Again, if I get 2 stops, because I will short this up here, right? If I get 2 stops, look for me to just shrug my shoulders and go home. 3 minutes till the top of the hour. I'd like to see some weakness come in before on NQ before I get aggressively short there. There's plenty of room to back and fill. And while we come to the top of the hour, I'm going to take a quick break. Guys in the room on YouTube, thank y'all for joining us this morning. If you'd like to come and visit the room, just send me an email to Trade and Perform, TRADENPERFORM @gmail.com. Or you can use the new email, which is tradertough@gmail.com, and ask for a 5-day trial, and I'll be happy to set you up. Hope everyone has a great day. Trade smart, guys. That's all I can recommend. We're about to get to work here in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So talk to y'all later.